So I just sent the agenda out on the chat. Feel free to record your name so I can take attendance, and then we can just review some action items. And I'm not sure who accepted to present or not. So if you don't mind, just please put down, your talk in the on the agenda. Anyway, so the code of conduct is the same as it's been. Treat others with respect, of course. We're here to share opinions in a respectful manner. We don't want fiery engagement and people throwing their laptops across the room. We're all humans, we're all adults here. So please be mindful of that. Now that's out of the way. First item on the agenda here. So Denise, this is sign name. So please introduce yourself. It's your first time here among the group. Hello, everyone. Yes, I have to explain who I am. Yes, a brief. You don't have to go your whole resume, but just who you are. All right, I won't. I'll take an hour. No, no, we put to sleep. All right, no. All right. So, hello, my name is Denis, and here's my sign name. I am from Ukraine, and I have been in Canada for the past while. I've been proficient in tech since high school, and I really loved it as a hobby, and I've been immersed in it ever since. The past year or two, I started coding and I was fascinated by it. And so, yeah, that's a short bio. So, Rob asking any experience, CNF, have you ever had any experience with this group? No, I first started in high school. They offered study is related. So I had to get a loaner laptop, and I wanted to do something for fun for myself, and I started reading about HTML, and I looked into it, and there was one teacher who had given me a book about Bitmobile for HTML, and I read that and I thought, oh wow, this is cool. And then CSS and some other languages, and then I saw Python, C++. And then after I graduated high school, I moved back home, and then I pushed myself to continue learning and as well as working and on my personal time. And then, the war happened in Ukraine. So I had left, my family had left. And then we went to England and we moved around Europe. We moved several times and then ended up here in Canada where I've settled. And I'm starting over here in this country and relearning everything. Well, Rob saying, happy to have you here. Nice to meet you, says Jay. Warm welcome. Nice to meet you all, says Denis. Okay. So now, who will be talking? We'll be moving throughout, we'll give some updates, and then the keynote, I guess, is me. And I was shocked to see that it was me. What happened? They reached out, someone from CNCF had reached out to me. I just out of the blue. And they said, oh, well, your talk has seemed fascinating and interesting. So I said, oh, sure. And they said, oh, yeah, cool. All right, cool. I didn't think anything of it. And after some time, they sent an email out about who will be presenting, who is accepted or denied. And seemed one of my presentations that I proposed got denied. So I was bummed about that. Then I received another email where they said, oh no, it's accepted, you're accepted. And I was reading the fine print in the email, and I see the word keynote. And I'm like, no, it's got to be a mistake. So I reached out to that person who sent me this email, and I said, what is this about? And they said, yes, yes, that's correct. You're the keynote. And I was stunned. And so I was like, oh no, okay, all right. I really have to put a lot of work in to make this so perfect and polished for this big event and all the attention, make sure the demo works and so on. So I was working with two other people here and trying to make sure it's perfect. And we collaborated on that together and cleaned it up. So It's been great working with this team. I'm able to tap into their knowledge. They're more knowledgeable in some areas that I have gaps in, so we're able to collaborate. And oh, hello, 7G.
That's Anastasia.
So saying hello to AI so they don't feel left out. So it was really exciting. And the talk itself, it was less than 15 minutes, I believe, if I'm doing the math right. So a typical section is about 25 minutes or so. This keynote is shortened, so that's fine. Less time on the spotlight. That's perfect for me. That's good. Okay, so really excited about that, and it was a nice surprise. That was delightful. So okay, so now first time, on the stage is Destiny, the co-chair. She's the first deaf person who is on the keynote stage for a major conference such as this. So congratulations in Chicago. Way to go. And plus the first deaf woman that's also of color who's Black. So wow, all in one in this one person. So congratulations. And then also 7G, the second person from Europe, from Paris. Congratulations, great work to you. And then next is myself. Yes, that's fine, Sandeep. Yeah, yeah. We'll keep it short and sweet. We don't want to bore the audience. So 15 minutes. So that's ample time. You don't put the audience to sleep, right? So who else was chosen to speak or was accepted? If you mind just talking about giving a brief overview of Sandeep. So Sandeep. Oh, Anastasia. Seems my captions are not working well, I think. Okay, that's fine. So who else is accepted to speak? Okay, so Anastasia, yes, I was accepted on my own to talk about AI chips and also to talk about. So I think that's the day before Rob is asking. It's the first day, I believe. Anastasia, okay, right. So the day before me, yes. Rob, no, you're right. Yes, Rob saying the first one on April 1st, correct? Yes. Yes, April 1st. Yes, the first day, Anastasia is saying. Yeah, it's for the open event. And then Jay also is presenting as well. No? Yeah, I didn't get the chance, unfortunately, no. So Travis, you won't be coming either, no. Andres, no, I rejected mine as well. And then he just clarifying that Andres, so this is his sign name, yeah. So Sandeep, you're presenting, right?
Yeah, so I have actually three talks. The first one is a co-located talk. The first one is a co-located talk on April 1. So the talk is I'm co-presenting it with Lucy. So what we are going to do is, you know about Kubernetes the hardware. So I think you all must have seen the tutorial of Kubernetes the hardware. So we are actually going to break down into pieces and explain what each component is about and what it is doing. So that is it. We are going to have a live demo as well. So it's Kubernetes from the ground up. And then the second talk is the panel discussion I have with Catherine Millard and everyone, Anastasia. And then the third one is the maintainer track. That's it.
Sorry, could you repeat the third one, Sandeep? I didn't catch that one.
Thank you. Yeah. So the third talk is the talk about the maintainer track talk. So I think the
Maintainer.
talk is about expanding the contributor pipeline through inclusion. So it's about how
One
we
more
can
time,
drive
what is
inclusion.
this one?
One
Maybe
moment. 1 moment, Sandeep. Because I think there are a lot of very typical names for our space. So maintainer talk is basically for project maintainers. Then there's Kubernetes, which is technology. So I think we're throwing a lot of new words, and then it's very hard for the interpreter to kind of follow those. So maintainer track. So you had a maintainer track, which are the ones that projects and tags, TAGs, can submit.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
So
and
that's a good
yeah,
word to add in the glossary.
yeah, and Catherine, thank you for highlighting that we are throwing a lot of technical terms. Sorry, I didn't realize. And the second thing is that a lot of independent getting the travel funding. So we'll get to know by February 7th about the travel funding.
And Travis and Rob are having a conversation, but I'm not able to capture that at the same time as signing for Sandeep.
I believe Rob was talking about adding a new word to the glossary.
What do you mean you cannot multitask? Oh, sorry.
Oh, absolutely right. The interpreter. If people are having side conversation, then you can ignore them. Go ahead and focus on whoever it is that's interpreting. So DIUB, who's that? DUB? Oh, I don't know.
DEI hub.
DEI hub. Thank you.
Yeah. Another term. So yeah, like to the interpreters, whenever you hear something weird, just let us know, because I know there's a lot of jargon, and people just throw it out there. So yeah, KubeCon DEI Community Hub. So that's happening. Very excited. As you know, we participated last time. We got some feedback from Google, the sponsor. I had a call with him, Mike from Google, and Wendy from the CNCF last week. And it was like, yeah, great, lots of engagement, but it was a bit chaotic. And I think we know, people were unprepared, right? Like, so it was like, what do you want to talk about? And so it was a little, yeah, a little chaotic, but I think it was chaotic because we didn't know so many people would show up. And like last time it was really small. So one thing that he did ask, and that's something that we discussed before that we wanted to do anyways, is bring a little bit more structure. But that was like an ask that he did as well specifically. But again, we talked about this. So I did start a advocacy discussion doc, which is linked in the agenda. And so basically the to-dos that we have to do is come up with a theme. So for the advocacy discussion, we should kind of, because if we're doing these regularly, we should kind of come up with a theme, and it can be the theme for the year, right? If we're doing it in EU, it can be the same theme in North America. So we switch things a little bit up. So come up with a theme. Then we should assign a discussion lead and co-lead, right? Like two people who are like own it. And then come up with 5 icebreaker questions or something, like because people are not going to start participating right away. And one thing that Mike from Google suggested was maybe preparing a little introduction deck, just like for a little like 5-minute presentation to talk about whatever topic it is. I think like the example for sign language might for the sign language crash course might be easier. Also have like an intro, a deck, and then things that we can include. What is sign language? It's not universal. How many sign language are they? How is it different? How do the deaf people around the world communicate? Those are things that a lot of people don't know. And so whenever we start a sign language crash course, it would be great to start with a little introduction. Again, not a huge thing. Just 5 minutes to give people an overview. And what are we going to learn today? Okay, it's going to be ASL. So like a little intro. So I think for the advocacy discussion, it would be as well like good something that introduces it, and then icebreaker questions, because it takes a little while for people to ask questions, and then yeah. And then for sign language crash course, again, like the intro deck, come up with a list of signs to be covered. It doesn't mean that you only have to show those, but like so people already know. And there is a link as well with some ideas. I think obviously things that are very kind of make sense, like hello, nice to meet you, thank you, maybe the countries you were from, then a few technical terms. I'm sure people want to learn how to say cloud native, Kubernetes, all that stuff. And then it just gives people a little bit guidance because we're breaking up with one people, but then you can improvise and do other things. But like just to get started and have something and some commonality as well. So yeah. I know we don't have clarity yet on who is going because we're waiting for travel funding responses, but how does that sound? And it's going to be for upcoming DI hubs too, or any ideas or feedback. Okay, I've got Sandeep support, that's good.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful and it's very nice to have a structure. Okay, I think we could give a short introduction about what the group does. Okay, what are the key initiatives the group is working on? How do different deaf people communicate? Like we each have our own way of communication. So I think a little bit of intro will set the tone for the whole discussion.
Yeah. And one thing that we wanted to do, but so we saw a lot of people coming to the crash course for the DI when it was in the DI hub, and when it was in the exhibit hall, we didn't have anyone coming. Like, remember that I had to drag people to join. So one idea that I had was putting our talks, like our what's it called? Our both diversity and inclusion panels in the same room was my initial idea. So it is part of the DI hub, but then the problem is it cannot be recorded. So we moved away from that, but it will be part of the DI hub program. So it's still gonna be, it's in the program for the track, but we're gonna promote it together as part of the DI hub programming because it's DI themed talks. Go ahead, Rob.
Sure.
Rob, you wanted to say something?
Oh, okay, yeah. So Sandeep, you see the picture that he put in the chat? Yeah. Does that answer your question? About the DEI presentation and who will be involved and the chats, or rather all of the information. And Denny, I see your hand up as well. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I lost my thought and now it's back. I did want to add, thinking about for today, is Swift. That builds on previous learning, something that you've already learned. And so maybe we can upload that, and then people can upload previous information. And I know that we haven't, but if we could upload that, maybe, I don't know exactly how to do that, but then maybe we could do a hashtag also and have a form open for that. But Swift is kind of like the idea of like Apple, and having both tracks. Apple and what? And Rob is saying, thank you very much for that. And Dennis is saying, whew, okay, I'm glad that that will be included. And Rob is saying, yep, no, cool, that's fine. And who else? Did anybody else have a comment, question? about the DEI hub before we move on?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can someone repeat what exactly was Danny's idea? I did not quite get it, what he was trying to say.
Are you? Ooh. Sure, I can do that. So for the introductions, I had lost my thought and I wasn't thinking about that, but for now I've got my thoughts back. So I was thinking about an introduction about myself just shortly, right? So I'm here, right? And I'm learning, and it's a project, a linguistics project called SWIFT, SWIFT. And it's an Apple thing, an Apple device, games, everything, but also
C
C
sharp.
sharp. For cross platforms, which means it could be like open source .net, .mui. It's new, and it's perfect. It works perfectly with Windows. So right now we're working on Swift. Very excited about that, but also looking at C sharp. And I have a little bit of experience with that with C++. It was pretty complicated, but I feel like I'm very motivated to learn that. So I'll be looking at both of those things. C sharp can build Unity, can be used to build Unity. So that's just something that to be aware of. And so that's what I was talking about. And Rob is saying, that's a good opportunity. If anybody has something that is related to DEI and the community hub, like was mentioned before, you're figuring out signs or figuring out, something that would be helpful for running a specific thing, please feel free to document that in Google, in our Google Doc. Definitely add that information in. Next on our agenda, next item on our agenda is the glossary information, and this is going to be Travis. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so currently, the current update for the glossary is that we are almost ready to go live. Right now, we're on our final step, and it's what we want for the CNCF glossary maintainer to be able to look at the PR and do their part on that pull request. That's the last part of it, but should be closing that PR when that's done. And then we'll be uploading 6 videos to the CNCF YouTube channel. And that should happen anytime now. And we'll be going live. So very excited about that. And let's see what else. For the next steps with the glossary, we have some improvement or some fragments that we need to make adjustments on. We've got some recent learning that's happened. We uploaded a video and we had to have the right format. It's, I don't know, if you've gotten a PR, to add instructions so that people know that they have to add the right format name so that it looks good in CNCF on their YouTube channel, so it looks appropriate and matches what they've already got there. And Rob is saying, okay, instructions. Okay, so an explanation for that. Yeah. And going back to Travis, the other thing that we need to add is that the next meeting will be in February. I've typically hosted a monthly glossary meeting, but I've noticed that we've been struggling in coming up with new signs, and we've got many approved signs that no one has uploaded videos for. So I'm thinking maybe we pause that monthly meeting and we, take a hiatus on that for a bit. But I'm waiting for new volunteers to join so that they can start uploading those videos for the signs that don't have videos that have been approved. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it going live, and of course we can talk more in the glossary channel for that if anybody's got any questions or feedback. And Rob is saying, right, we can do the memorandum, the MOU for that.
And to keep the glossary going for the next 6 months to 1 year and keep that momentum going. If we have to switch leadership as we move along, it may be harder, I think, right? So just a thought I'm sharing.
And Travis?
We're close to the finish line, so Travis, please.
Right, sorry. Sorry, was waiting on the interpreter. Anyway, I just wanted to encourage us, like, we've been hosting meetings and it was my idea just to come up with some signs, but I'm disappointed that we've been struggling to come up with new signs, and that's, one of the things that I was thinking about. So I will, pause that meeting and then we can figure out a workaround. And when we can do it again, then I will go ahead and push for more meetings and figure out a time and take the lead on that. But it just makes sense, it doesn't make sense for people to join and then just sit around and do nothing. So when we've got more work to do, then we will jump back into that.
And then what are some of the new signs that you want to roll out moving forward? You can switch. So there any new signs? Travis saying yes. Okay. All right. Perfect. Rob saying great. Anyone want to add a comment to that discussion? If you want to, looks like Catherine has her
Yep.
hand.
Exactly. So Travis, I think I wouldn't kind of stress too much about finding signs for everything, right? Like, so focus on the things that you already know. There are like signs that are established, and then some that you came up with that are very common for the cloud native space. And then if you had a roadblock, just leave it there for a while as well. It doesn't have to be like all complete, and you don't have to force to create a sign for every single term that is in there, because like some terms may be terms that no one in this group is using. So it doesn't make sense to create something and say like, oh, we came up for a term that none of us uses, right? So that's like kind of like almost pushing it to other people. At some point, deaf people in the space who are using and working with that technology come up with those terms. So I think just do the things that you know, the ones that make sense, publish that. It doesn't have to be all. And then once people see that there are signs, that are videos with signs, let it just rolling, and then let it there and have people contribute. I think, again, like one of the main reasons I wanted there to be videos is for visibility again, right? Like I know we wanted interpreters to be able to use it, and interpreters here at some point will hopefully kind of see that, and then they can kind of learn the terms that are specific for our community. But I think like an almost even more important point is just people using the glossary to see like, oh, wow, there's a sign for this. There are deaf people here, kind of like that visibility and awareness. I think that is huge, and it doesn't have to be the whole glossary, right? So I think so. Don't stress it. Do whatever you have, whatever you can come up with, and then there is so much other work that we have to do. And then maybe as you talk about things, then new terms come to mind, or you start using new terms, and then you have to come up with that. But I wouldn't stress or push it. Just do whatever until you get there, and then just stop and pause and let other people continue the work.
So yes, Rob's saying just one at a time. We can keep adding words as we go through the whole list of words, maybe 5 at a time, or you don't really have to do all of it at once. So no need to stress that. And then Milad here. So I'm in a similar situation with my work. When we're starting a new project, it doesn't have to be perfect. Everything doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. No, we just have coming up with a concept and things, testing it out, see what works, and then practicing and to influence and keep perfecting it as we go and improving things as we go throughout the cycle. So that same concept applies here. So just a tip, to keep working. And I agree with Catherine. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You'll feel burnt out and you'll waste a lot of energy trying to perfect it. And then, what are the consequences? What's the result? So it's not worth it. And then Rob saying to make a release, what we recently with Anastasia had developed, the 1.34, I believe. I think you're on 1.34. And the release was really small. It wasn't like a long, in-depth. This was a short list. So, it's a little bit here and there. You don't have to go crazy releasing everything at thousands of things early. So that philosophy applies with the signs. If it looks good, upload it, release it. It's good. Get it out there. Travis is saying, thank you. So we don't want to pressure you, and we want to be respectful of your time throughout the week, and little by little keep going and then releasing it as you go. Thank you. Yeah, so I think you'll work faster that way. So, okay. Anyone want to add anything about the glossary before we move on? Or we're good? All right. So, all right, Travis, you're with your part. Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next, Anastasia, if you can talk about the workshop. Yes, thank you. So first I'll talk about the workshop involved in CNCF and more of a social view and spreading that communication out there and how it's important for us to show how it's a personal branding and how we're influencing. So there's offline workshop for the deaf only, and there's tools that are being provided, and we can look at how we can use these tools and implement them to help us and keep improving our communication to the public about what we're working on. And so, whoever is interested in joining, we hope to have you. And the second thing is Deaf and Cloud Native. We just got back from holiday and starting to prepare for that now. And hopefully in the interim, we'll have a satellite work moving forward and phasing it out. So that's the next part here. And then it'll be in London. I think it's time to start thinking about signing and understanding what our needs are and what we need for that. And also the DEI activity, we'll be working on that next. And I think in London, it'll be similar challenges like what we had experienced in Paris with the interpretation. And the reason for that is because in the UK, they all use BSL, not ASL. So maybe we need to have deaf interpreters who can translate from BSL to ASL or International Sign Language. And so that's something we need to think about as well. So we should take time to really think this through about what our needs are and then start going through those items and seeing what we can do to advocate to CNCF, to the event coordinators and logistics coordinators, and saying, helping them understand what we need for registration and all that. So that's my thoughts as of this moment. And Catherine has her hand raised.
Yeah, so I believe we're gonna fly in because we're building our own interpreter team for KubeCon. And so I think we're going to be flying in, at least for ASL part, right? Like flying in the same team. And so I think it's also ideal because you know them and they know you. So it's like it's just easier, especially with the talks. But as far as I know, that's the goal, which is exactly what they do with as they explained to me, with the photographers. It's always the same photographer team. They're all freelancers, right? They fly them in. And I think that's good because, like, it's important to know the interpreter specifically for public speaking, right? Because you want to know they understand everything and interpret everything correctly in such an important moment, right? So, yeah.
So would you prefer to have the same interpreter group, or would you prefer to have a BSL interpreter, or what are all your thoughts about that? Anastasia is saying, for me, I would like to have a BSL interpreter, which I work with them that are familiar and they know on this area in depth. So that's why I would have a BSL interpreter. Okay, so Rob's saying, I feel like for sure, Emily, those two interpreters who have been for the past few KubeCons, and then also a BSL interpreter, and then oh, Milad, do you have any preference? And Milad saying not ASL for me, and I live in I don't live in I live in the UK, so. And then Sandeep, do you have a preference on what type of interpreter you would want? Do you want to try having an interpreter voice for you? Would that be easier for you, Sandeep?
He doesn't use interpreters.
So Sandeep, no,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. So we'll do it case by case, and then we'll send it out. We'll communicate all of that to Celia, what our preferences are. And then Anastasia, you have your hand raised. Oh no, sorry. Mila just talking about okay, Anastasia. So I'm sorry, what did you mean by that, Rob? Milad, can you say that again? I missed what you were saying, Milad. I was asking Anastasia for BSL interpreters, maybe that you can find the volunteers through your network. No, I was just wondering. Milad's asking. No, it's limited job hours. Anastasia is saying. So yeah, this may be overnight. So we need to contact a network of interpreters and find out who's a good fit. Yes, Anastasia is saying. I'll think about that. So back to the question I have for you all for the keynote. Which interpreter would be on screen? An international sign language interpreter, or I believe it should be someone who can interpret an international sign language. And Jay is agreeing. And now she's saying, should this be a deaf interpreter? Rob is saying yes. So if it's a deaf interpreter, then maybe I would say we need a BSL interpreter, someone who's proficient in BSL. And Jay nodding in agreement. Rob saying in the UK, it's more, they are proficient in international sign language. So in Paris, it was not an LSF signer. It was in France. They were signing in international sign language. Yes. So we'll have to get someone who, same concept, who for someone from WFD, World Federation of the Deaf, they would have someone who is proficient in international sign language who can broadcast out there. And Catherine, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I think what we recommended was in North America, ASL, of course, that's easy. In Europe, on the keynote, international sign language, right? I think in Paris, we had that agency that did that whole concept with deaf interpreters. In London, I think it just depends, like, who are they going to find? So, yeah, because we'll have international sign language just for the keynotes. And something that we have to think about as well is, like, who is it really for if they're not recording it if it's not in the recording. So that's one of the requests I made several times, and this time I made it through someone else, is that the keynotes recording should also include the interpreters, because it's like, why are you spending all that money and then not having them on the recording? So hopefully the third time, the second time it will work. But my question is, maybe we can have that discussion offline, but if our recommendation is international sign language, and we have, because it is EU, right? It's not North America. But if the group that will be traveling are all comfortable in ASL, and the vast majority does not feel comfortable with international sign language, is like, is that still the right approach? I mean, like, more broadly, probably. But with the small audience that is there, that is basically the people on this call. So just a discussion to have, like, should it also be, I think, like, theoretically, the right answer is it should be international sign language because it's an international conference. Maybe the most practical one is ASL, because most of the people, like everyone here, kind of does communicate in ASL. And what are the chances that someone else pops? I don't know. So yeah, something to discuss. I think it's like, and I think, again, like you guys should decide it, what we recommend, but I think it's something to think about.
Yeah, so we can have an ASL interpreter signing, and then for the recording, it'd be an international sign language. And then secondly, for the keynote, we're already having closed captions, so they can see the international sign language. And if they don't understand that, then they can pivot to the closed captioning. They can make that connection between that. Milad has his hand raised for international sign language. It's Milad. Yes, I'm wondering, going back to the original point, Anastasia was saying, you were saying exactly about the keynote on stage. So what exactly is the issue? Do you mind just So we have an international interpreter that's a deaf person for the keynote, but we need a BSL interpreter for the international deaf interpreter to be able to access the information from spoken English into BSL, then to be translated into international sign language. So that's why it's different. So we can't just have it be that interpreter can't take ASL into international. They take it from English to BSL to international sign. So we need that deaf person who is using BSL as an intermediary from the English to BSL, then to translate it for the interpreter on stage from BSL to international. So Mila is saying we'll have a picture in picture. So if we have someone signing in ASL, that means we have to have a BSL person. We don't need that. No, well, it won't be in BSL on stage. For the keynote stage, you'll have someone on screen, and then you'll have a deaf international interpreter in signing in out broadcasted, but then you'll need someone signing to that interpreter from English to BSL. So we don't need the BSL to be broadcasted. I hope that's clear. So Rob's saying Milad. So for the keynote, we'll have a big screen and then a box, a picture in picture where the interpreter is there, and that's signing international sign language. So that person is always a hearing person speaking and then a hearing person signing. Oh no, this will be a deaf interpreter. Same idea as what we did in Paris. We had a person speaking in English as a keynote presenter. Then we had an interpreter from LSF taking that information from French to LSF and then into international sign language. So it's the same principle that will be applied here, the spoken language into the native sign language, and then broadcasted out into the international sign language. So that deaf person will be on stage alongside the keynote, and they'll be signing in international sign language. Interpreter switch.
And Milad is saying, well, it would be easier if we had an ASL interpreter there. And Rob is saying, the important part is to have international sign openly available. And Anastasia is saying, okay, so perhaps Catherine can lead a vote on this. And so we can figure out who is on stage, which language is on stage, and what the captioner would need and all of that. We would need all of that to make a decision on this. And I think that we should call a vote on it at some point. And Milad is saying, but yeah, maybe that could be an offline discussion. And Rob is saying, right, we've got other meetings and time is running out. Catherine, yes. Oh, Travis. Just to add, it might be a good idea to reach out to CNCF accessibility team. They might have a list of people who, they've got in the UK or local to Europe who maybe are planning to go. Like I mentioned before, we've got folks in the US, and I don't know if they are part of CNCF who are, not in the DHH working group that may be going. So it might be a good idea to figure out who else is going, who may be not part of this group, who might have resources. And then they might be able to make recommendations. So I think it'd be a good idea to reach out to folks like that as well. And Rob is saying, yeah, I agree. And Catherine.
Yeah. And I think again we can do this offline, I think. But yeah, like the question, like the whole thing about like does it have to be like a deaf interpreter? Because we're talking, I think that was the agency that they found in France. I don't know necessarily that that's something that they specifically sought after. Because I assume what they're going to look for is like, do we have interpreters for international sign? And then that's how it's going to work. And then if the agency works like that with deaf interpreters or not is another layer of complexity maybe. But if that's something that's important to you, I don't know, let's discuss, let's definitely discuss that offline and provide the CNCF with feedback if we want something specific for them to do, because right now our recommendation is international sign on the keynotes, and then attendees can choose international sign or ASL. That's what we that was our guidance that we published in our best practices, right? And they're going with that. If we want something to change, which we should let them know as soon as possible. But again, I'll start a thread in our channel, and then we can discuss this further. But we should do it rather quick because it's coming up quickly.
Right, we can discuss this offline and come up with a solution to give to Celia to think about what our considerations are, and we can reach out to an agency and make that work. So, excellent. Okay. Appreciate your comments, Sandeep. Excellent. Travis as well. Know that you guys are all working very hard. And right, it's been a year. So now any new business before we close? New or old business, or anything that you want to bring up for discussion? We've got 9 minutes left, so I will open the floor. And Jay is saying, I don't have anything right now. Travis, yes, I see your hand up. I was thinking about, I don't know who is involved with CNCF special interest working groups, the SIGs. I haven't yet joined any other SIGs, but I was wondering if anyone has experience with other SIG groups. I'm kind of curious to know or to be aware of, if there are deaf people who are joining those groups or who are working on perhaps captioning for the monthly meetings or anything along those lines. And Rob is saying the SIGs, you said SIGs, and then Sandeep, you have experience with that? Sure, Anastasia. So, right, CNCF president, the meetup. I've only gone to one so far, and so I can't speak to all of the meetings, but the one that I went to, I did ask the events person to provide an interpreter, and they did book an interpreter for me. But I'm not exactly sure if it would be the same person or if that would be the same for every meeting. I've only attended one, but you absolutely can ask, and probably better to ask than not. Right, so that's a good point. I would say, yeah, definitely ask and perhaps give feedback about that. Send an email. And Rob is saying, yeah, I mean, they're all voluntary. There's no budget for that. So, if they're willing to do this for the DHH working group, and CNCF takes care of that. But yeah, understanding that like closed captioning or live interpreting or CART or working at async. But yeah, Catherine, you have your hand up. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I know that Emily Fox, I don't know if you remember her, she used to be a KubeCon chair, and she is the chair of the TOC, the Technical Oversight Committee, and a big supporter of our groups and Merge Forward. So she was actually telling me that it would be great if people from this group are more start trying to get involved in other areas because it's so important for networking. And we've seen Sandeep has done this, right? And suddenly he had like a talk with someone who I had no idea he met, because so it is extremely important to engage in activities outside of our working group. I think our working group is great to support each other for advocacy, but you need to meet people in the community. We have people who work at great companies with great connections, like that, like build your professional network, collaborate with them. I know it's a little bit challenging because there is like that communication barrier. How do we make it work? I know everyone will want to make it as accommodating as possible. I don't really believe you can have an interpreter in all open source meetings because it's open source, it's free, it's like it's I don't think it's feasible. But yeah, asking might not. You can always ask, right? Like that's just my assessment. But are there other ways to engage, maybe where there's a lot of async work as well in open source, right? I forgot exactly what she told, because she proposed something and it's like I'm not too familiar with that area. So I think what I would love to do is maybe invite her to join one of our meetings and present and talk about that, like how she would love for you to get involved, because there's a lot of things where they really want your feedback on helping make projects more accessible. And so your input would be incredibly valuable. But that is, Travis, very much something that people should do. And I've been told that I should encourage you as well to do. And yeah, I can highly recommend, because it's like this group is awesome. But ultimately, to grow professionally, and you need to make these connections with people outside of our group, right? Other people and that's a good thing. Like we have like so many great companies that are part of the Cloud Native community, and yeah, I just think it's like a huge opportunity. So let me see like if Emily can come and do like a little mini presentation, or maybe someone else can if she's not available. Let's just make sure that if she does, that we have as many people of our team attend, because I think like yeah, she has a much better view of how you can engage, because as you know, my background is in marketing. I'm not very involved in the technical part and of open source, so it's hard for me to provide feedback there. But like there are people who want you to be engaged, and so yeah, I think that's so. Thank you for bringing that up, Travis. Yeah, great point.
Awesome. And Rob is saying, yeah, I wouldn't maybe mind seeing a sponsor, you know, if somebody was participating, maybe somebody could make a big contribution, like a kind of a grant for having an interpreter, providing interpreting services. Sandeep, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just trying to answer Travis' question. So in addition to what Catherine said, there are multiple special interest groups or SIGs. So depending on what interests you, you attend a few meetings in a SIG, but you have to be very consistent. And we use the same Zoom, so all of the SIG meetings all have captions. So interpreter, I think it depends. If you are consistently attending, then I think they might be able to arrange an interpreter for you. But it depends. And the outside world is actually much more better than we think it to be. And the people are really, they want us to be a part of their group as well. So there are many other folks who are wonderfully inclusive, but they are not able to join our meetings. But that does not mean that they don't want to collaborate with us. So feel free to go outside, feel free to reach out to other people, and you will find that they will be very happy to collaborate with you.
And Travis is saying, okay, thanks for that. And Rob is saying, anything to add before we close out our meeting? We've got 1 minute left. Woo! Anyone? Anyone?
Oh, great meeting.
Okay. Thank you for coming, everyone. Appreciate your time, and it's great to see you all. And we do have a few action items from this meeting, so great to have that as well. And so excellent. And